from the John DeVita Broadcast Center. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, August the 23rd, the year of our Lord, 2017. And now, here they are, still from last month, breathing on their own, with a big smile on their face.
And a song in their hearts.
And a song in their heart. Here they are, Jim and Rich.
You know, with the nature of some of our conversation here sometime, and based on what you just told me before we started this nonsense, I'm afraid to say anything because I'd be guilty of microaggression.
You don't want... here is another possible microaggression. I was out in Carroll Stream on Saturday, and I passed a couple of churches, and I thought one of them might be one that you and your lovely wife had attended at one point. And I can't... this would have been out towards Wheaton. Did you go to a church in Wheaton at one time?
No, but if you were out in the Wheaton area, the Compass Church has a campus in Wheaton, and that's the church we attend.
Is it off North Avenue?
No.
Okay, then it
No.
wasn't. But
No.
there was a couple of huge churches that we passed, and I couldn't remember what the name of the church you guys had been going to.
No. But you know, like I said, the church we attend does have a campus in
But
Wheaton.
that's a possible microaggression because people who are listening, who are atheists, may be offended. So it's a possible microaggression. So that's one against us, and we're not even 2 minutes into the broadcast.
We haven't even gotten 2 minutes into the...
By the way, we added, we've already had this gentleman as a listener. We just didn't realize it. I saw Jack Albert on Sunday. I was going to Norwich Park, and Jack was out
very good.
Doing some yard work, and he said, "Hey, I listened to your show."
Hey.
And I'm like, hey, that's a compliment because Jack knows his sports.
All our many listener.
Yeah, all our many listeners. I said, geez, we always kid around about having our 2 listeners, and he said, well, make it 3.
There you go.
Make it 3.
There you go.
So.
Well, I'm trying to do some things to see what we can promote our little epic get together here, and I got to find out what our exact title is of our page.
Oh, okay.
But I sent a bunch of invites out, and some other people liked it. And local legends / the world as we see it / armchair experts.
Okay.
Yesterday at 5:04, we had 2 new likes, 1 new post like, and 3 new views. We're up to 15 people who have liked liked this page.
I'm happy with that.
I sent a bunch of invites, but they want me to spend $5 to advertise it more so we could get more hits. Well, I may look into setting us up as a public group.
Did you say this is Facebook though?
Facebook.
Okay.
On Facebook.
Okay.
I may look into setting this up, see what a public group might do, because I'm too cheap to pay.
Well, I mean, I always thought Facebook was, it's all totally free. I'm surprised that...
No, it can be, but I mean, if you want to, with the way this page was set up, and I'm actually piggybacking on something that Kevin had done a while back, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. I was starting to play around with Facebook pages for us.
How about pictures of those waitresses from the supper clubs John goes to when he's up north?
Hey, yeah.
That might get somebody's attention.
Look
at John. Look at the look John's giving us.
John,
I don't know anything about that.
I don't know. I don't go into any supper clubs up north.
Oh, God.
To be honest with you, neither do I. And when I do go someplace, I got my sister with me.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's you know what? That's just like Matthews.
Oh, you were about to say something about Matthews.
I go to this.
Our friend Jimmy Sunshine.
I go to this event. It was last. I think it was last spring, and it was at Moretti's. It was. I think it was the Rotary Club.
Yeah.
It had a wine tasting or something. So I'm sitting at the table, and Jim comes in with a lady, and he introduces her or he actually had prepped me. He said, I'm bringing my sister. So he comes in with this lady, and I said, nice to meet you. I didn't know Jim had a sister. And she's looking at me like, sister? So Jim's sister really wasn't his sister.
This was like the story. Stories a friend of mine always would tell me back from my days working for Prudential. Dick Rickoff's wife at that time was, and Dick's still alive. He's in his 80s, but his wife unfortunately passed away. But his wife was civil service director for the county.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in the days of George Dunn.
Okay.
Being in charge of the county board and the Democratic Party and all that stuff back there. And it was always amazing how Dick said every time he and Bea would go to some political event, Dunn would always be there with a very attractive young woman, and they'd always be his niece.
His niece, yeah. I tell you, he had a widespread family.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Well, let's see. What can we get into today? You want to talk about any thoughts before we get into beers? Any thoughts on Mayweather and McGregor?
I have a feeling that this thing. I'm not saying it's fixed, but it's sort of. It almost feels like the stage is being set. They're putting you in the mindset of a big upset. So I wouldn't be surprised to see McGregor win this. I mean,
Vegas. I was looking at an article. What made me think about this today? I was looking at an article on CBSSports.com this morning, and if McGregor wins, Vegas is going to take a big bath.
I thought Vegas never took a bath.
Yeah, they're having a problem with this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know more about that kind of stuff than I do. I always thought Vegas just took the bets, and they, actually still made. They made whatever way the bet was placed. They made money.
You're trying to. You're always going to have something because there's always going to be the vig.
Right.
But they're having a problem because the money is so the money coming in right now is so unbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot on McGregor. You got a lot on McGregor as the underdog, and you're not getting enough at this point on Mayweather to balance your yourself.
Okay. Okay.
And no matter how they're manipulating the odds, how they're manipulating the numbers, it ain't happening.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking to myself about this fight. Mayweather, as good a fighter as he's been, 43.
Is he 43? I thought he was 41.
And he really hasn't had a serious fight because the thing that he had with Pacquiao is no way, in my mind, actually a fight. It was like an exhibition, as far as I'm concerned. And they just agreed to. Thank you, John. Thank you. They just agreed to drop the gloves from.
Lovely the way he brings the coffee.
It is, isn't it?
He'll make a sandwich later and bring it.
They dropped the glove weight from 10 to 8 ounces, which has got to be something that the McGregor camp probably wanted. And, I just saw an article in the paper, I think it was last week, where all of a sudden Mayweather, who's the paragon of confidence, is talking about, he says, well, you know what, Pacquiao lost that fight to, that last fight that he had to the Australian kid. And that's in his mind. And I'm thinking, are they sort of setting the stage for this to be
a
McGregor win?
You wonder?
Yeah.
Because, by the way, John, I'm hearing old-time radio in my headset, too, here.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
Okay, I'm not hearing that.
I'm hearing an old-time radio show in the background here.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Could you tune it in for me, too, John?
It might be more interesting than us. Might be more interesting than us today. I don't know.
Any better, Jim?
No, I'm still hearing it. Still okay. All right. Well,
try to concentrate here. So, what were you saying?
I forgot. Guy who runs UFC, Dana.
Oh, geez, I don't know.
I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name. but he was on with Jimmy Kimmel, and Kimmel was kind of getting on him. It's like, what is this? It's just a money grab, that type of stuff. And he said, "Do you honestly think he could win? That McGregor can win?" And he said, "Yeah, I do."
Yeah.
I think my only question here, my only thing would be that if McGregor forgets where he is, kicks Mayweather and throws him down on the turf, throws him down on the ground,
Jim,
that'll be the end of the match.
It'll be really interesting to see how Mayweather handles this fight, because, I mean, to me, I don't know how much of. I'm wondering really how much of a fight it will be. I mean, because Mayweather needs to stay away from McGregor. The only way McGregor can beat him is with a bomb.
Yeah.
So you know what? It could actually be a real snooze job, as as well as anything.
It may not even live up to the
right.
The pipe. It was interesting too. I grabbed this from the July 24th SI. And the article here was Sideshow Effect When Hype Leads to Hate. And let's see. There's not much point in following sports if you're offended by spectacle. The first Olympics was a celebration of games, the arts, and gloriously pagan vices. The Aztecs played a game called Ulamalitzi that involved, among other things, among other crowd pleasers, human sacrifice. Let's see, and he goes down and says, and yet it is not until this very month that I have been tempted by a mere sporting event to pray for forgiveness, take 32 showers a day, and reacquaint myself with my lunch in colorful ways, which brings us to the upcoming encounter between Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. Mayweather, 40, is a boxer, one of the best of his generation. He's also a notorious beater of women. McGregor, 29, is a mixed martial arts sensation who's never boxed professionally and is likely to be tattooed even beyond his present state of body art by Mayweather. The purse for this fight is said to be a combined $175 million. A ringside seat is said to cost $10,000. I would rather spend 10 G's to watch Mayweather and McGregor set $175 million on fire than come within 100 miles of this glorified cholera outbreak. This is a festival for fools, a carnival for greed. Caligula would have been revolted by this fiasco, and so would his horse.
I don't know. I think that's overdoing it a little bit.
I think it's kind of overdoing it a little bit. I think what really probably, and maybe it was just the hype, the press tour. But it was really kind of to the point where you kind of disgusting.
Well, think about this though. I mean, you're in the fight business.
Sure.
And the fight business is really as low as I've ever seen it in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So, okay, you did Mayweather Pacquiao. That was even though they made money on it, that was from the eyeball test was a bust. And so, what else do you have left? Mayweather is still. He's the winner of that fight, okay, so he's still undefeated, so he's still got some drawing power. And you grab a guy from another sport, McGregor, a similar sport, but in a different sport, who's got some credibility in that sport, and you put them together, and
you see what happens.
You have a good business deal. And hey, I'll tell you what, you could, the person who wrote that can knock it all they want. But the reality is, to me, if they've actually brought in that type of money, $175 million, it's just like Bobby Riggs said about his famous match with Billie Jean King. Hey, you know what? I already pulled off the scam. Okay, we made a ton of money. I got the match.
Yeah,
okay?
I got the match,
and that's what's happening here.
Yeah, I think so too. Logic tells me. Mayweather should win this fight.
Yeah, that tells me that too. But anything could happen.
And I haven't even gone to. Until I thought about this today. I haven't even gone to my usual offshore site, Top Bet, to see what the numbers are.
Well, think about this though, Jim. If you're Mayweather,
And I'd throw only $5 on it, since I'm a big spender.
and you get out there and
John's
you
smirking.
see that this guy, no way can handle you. No way. I mean, the only way he can beat you is with the big bomb if he lands that. But otherwise, you're going to school him. What is your strategy? I mean, do you want to keep? Obviously, you probably, to enhance a possible next
Rematch.
fight down the road,
You want to drag
you want
it
to
on.
keep him standing.
You wanna keep him
or at
standing
least
for a while.
keep him going for a number of rounds. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to expect from this, to be honest with you. So, and to be after this fight, what is there if you are a fight fan? What is the next big thing that could happen? I don't see
Nothing.
anything down the road at all.
There is nothing. There is nobody out there in the fight game that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about when we were kids.
Yeah, almost every division
Almost
might have had
almost every division would have had something that
Had
would have
something, yeah.
interest, except the flyweights.
the
'cause-
flyweights. And light heavyweights was always sort of a dead division.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
But the middleweights,
Yeah, the middleweights were good. Welterweights.
welterweights.
lightweights. Yeah.
I
I mean, even going back before we were conscious, the featherweights, you had Willie Pep and
Sure.
Sandy Sadler
Sure.
with a bunch of high-profile fights. So,
yeah. And that to try to stir some interest, and I guess it did. And I've never really watched it to get an idea of who's who in it. Is the MMA, the mixed martial arts that McGregor came out of. I've never really watched it.
I think I've seen it, but I don't know what the attraction in it is, because I don't know if we could say this on the air, so I won't give your description of it once they get on the on the mat. But
Yeah, that would be a microaggression.
to me,
wouldn't
it's rather dull. I mean, so
and I believe that was actually Bert Sugars.
that was Bert Sugars. Okay.
I think that could be credited to Bert Sugar.
And we know that Bert Sugar does not give a hoot about microaggressions.
No, and
So,
he doesn't give a hoot about anything anymore.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I'm glad you brought the fight up. I never would have really thought to talk about it, but it's coming up Friday,
Saturday.
Saturday,
If you got $100, it's pay-per-view.
pay-per-view. Now, you know what? Here's a question.
Yeah, exactly. John
Jim-
just went.
Jim Matthews had an excellent question. He said, where can you see this fight? I mean, do you have to do pay-per-view, or are the bars still showing these?
Probably the bars are showing it. Actually, we stopped Saturday for lunch at Mullins out in Warrenville,
Okay.
and they had posters up.
Oh, okay.
So and
So
it's
it's gonna
basically basically a sports bar. Sports bar and restaurant. We stopped Saturday afternoon for lunch, and they had the posters up. So I assume they were
Okay.
going to be doing it. The last time I went to a bar to watch a fight was Tyson biting off Evander Holyfield's ear.
Oh, geez. And how long ago is that? That's got to be 20 years at least.
20
right?
years ago, at least.
Yeah, I would say.
And sitting next to a Mexican gentleman. This was down around Western and Montrose. When I lived down around there, sitting next to this Mexican gentleman, taps me on the shoulder, and all of a sudden I hear, "Did you see that?
Yeah.
Did that crazy guy bite his ear off?"
Well, you're making me think of the last time I saw a fight in a bar was the big local guy, the Polish kid. I can't think of his name. He was fighting. I don't know if it was Bone Crusher Smith or one of those guys. I can't think of who. Or it could have been it might have even been Lennox Lewis, or who was before Lennox Lewis. I can't think. But at any rate, I'm watching it, and it was with a bunch of guys from the Horizon. And, we had a couple, so, you're not really listening. You can't hear what's going on as the broadcast in the bar. But one of the fighters, I don't remember which, kneed the other guy. And we looked at it, going, And he did it twice. You go, did he just need it? I mean, it was clear. I mean, usually, I'm not saying it never happens in a fight, but especially a championship fight or two big contenders, you don't see that. But it happened twice in that fight. I can't think of who the heck it was. It was the Polish guy and
now I'm going to be. Yeah, I'm going to wake up about 2:00 in the morning and think of his name.
think who this
and
was.
I'm going to call you.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Well, you could call me because I won't hear the phone. That's for sure. But at any rate, that was the last time I saw any
all right.
fight in a bar,
I think that
other than the fights that happen in the bars.
I think this might be the only time we've ever talked boxing.
It is. It'll probably be the last time we
probably
talk boxing.
unless something really outstanding happens in
Yes,
this.
something. We don't know what that's going to be, though.
In this fight, something unusual happens in this fight. Well, moving on. You watched the Bears Saturday night.
Man, that was. I tell you what, I'm very encouraged by the Bears.
I am encouraged by the what really encouraged me, defensive backfield.
You know what here.
I'm encouraged by the things that I've seen overall.
I think what they've done and is what I like. What I kept thinking about as I watched the game was they have created competition within the team at almost every position, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
And I when I look at when they got down toward the end of the game, and they had the guys who are likely not to make the team in. There was one kid on defense. I think his name was Isaiah Irvin. I go, and he's an outside linebacker, and I think your chances of making the team as an outside linebacker are pretty slim.
Pretty slim.
I go, this kid looked like a pretty good football player.
Yeah. And, you're starting to see these guys who are starting to play out there just so somebody has tape on them.
Exactly. What I like also is Roy Robertson Harris, who when they, I don't know if he was drafted or if he was a free agent, was injured all last year, initially projected to be an outside linebacker. They've moved him to, I think he's a defensive end. Looked really good. I mean, so they took a guy with ability who they probably said, well, you know what, on this team he's not going to make it at the position that he has been playing in college, and moved them to a spot where they could take advantage of the fact that he's a good athlete and make the team and strengthen a position that needed to be strengthened, which was the defensive line. And I was impressed with him. Jonathan Bullard played very well.
Yes, he did.
You know what? The outside linebackers were outstanding. You did not see anybody get off the edge. I mean, Leonard Floyd, they could talk about sacks till the cows come home. He played an outstanding game while he was in there on Saturday night. He did not let anything get outside of him. He played solid, really good football. You could take the sacks or what that stat that they get way too hung up on. Just outstanding. And you know what? I don't know if you saw after the game, they put a microphone in Willie Young's face, and he talked a little bit, and he said, Leonard Floyd has been nothing but a professional since the day he walked into camp. He said that guy works hard.
I heard that. I heard that interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? Other than the fact that the papers want to create a controversy at the QB position, I really liked the fact. Well, did you see the article yesterday, Jim?
No.
Where they basically almost said, well, you set it up for Glennon and not for Trubisky. In other words, Glennon played with the first stringers. And somehow Trubisky was supposed to play with the first stringers when he got in the, what was it, the fourth quarter he played?
No, he came in the third quarter.
Or the second half.
He came in the second half. I mean, Sanchez got a little.
And that was the plan, I guess. Sanchez was supposed to get just the one series.
Yeah. And I mean, Sanchez, I heard an interesting interview with him. Sanchez understands that his role on this team is to be a mentor.
Right.
To both guys.
Yeah, yeah.
And he understands that.
Sure.
Real interesting interview, and a really interesting guy.
Well, I like Sanchez. I mean, put it this way: if something happened that Glennon was hurt, and they didn't want to go with Trubisky, they just wanted this to be a learning year. I think we'd be in good hands with Sanchez. I mean,
I think we would be too.
you know what happens, Jim? A guy like Sanchez, I think he had some rough, maybe playoff games with the Jets when he
Yeah.
was with them, and all of a sudden you get that rep and you carry it forward, and it never seems to leave you. And you know, a lot of these guys with those types of reps are really good, solid players. I'm not saying they're Tom Brady by any stretch, but hey, Mike Sanchez has been in the league for a while now as a quarterback. You don't stay if you don't have some value.
Right.
So
Right. I would have liked to have. I would have liked to have seen Trubisky with the first team playing the first team defense.
well,
Granted, you're not going to see. You're going to see it's exhibition season. What are you going to see? You're going to see very white bread defenses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling Dana that. I said I'd like to. She said he looked good. I said, yeah, he didn't look too bad. I said, but just keep in mind. I said you're not seeing anything fancy out there.
No.
And I'm also thinking, they ran that bootleg 2 times I can think of. At least twice. And Arizona went for it both times.
Yeah.
If that starts to be something that's in the regular rotation, defenses are going to read it somehow, that they know what's coming. I said, and you're going to pull, and your quarterback's going to be left looking at a team picture of your opponent's opponent's defensive line.
Well, I think the key there, though, is because I saw part of the first game. I saw the whole second. Pretty sure I saw the whole game. The second game, yeah. He spaced it out. Loggins is spaced it out where it doesn't. I don't know. I agree with you. Eventually, they will look for it, but he spaced it out enough where it's not going to be.
He did. It's not
going to be that big of an issue.
I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue.
Yeah.
But if I hope he doesn't fall in love with that call.
I don't think he can afford to.
No, he
Jim,
can't.
I was thinking about
You
this.
you got too much invested. You got too much invested in this kid to run that play too often while he's in there, and the kid wind up injured.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He took a bad hit when they were backed up toward the end zone.
I saw that too.
And I'm glad. You know what? I'm not for putting diapers on people or anything, but I'll tell you, in today, I don't know why it is. Maybe it's just that we've been educated to think about it. But that was a dangerous hit. I mean, and for as long as the NFL's been in existence or football's been in existence, I would say it's a clean hit from my perspective. But I could see where you want to protect the quarterbacks. It's a dangerous hit. You could be injured pretty easily there.
Yeah. By the way, as we're coming up towards the bottom here and we'll take a break here in a second. There was an article that came through on Saturday night, and I looked at it and I looked at the video. It says this was so preseason in one game, and I can't remember who it was now, but there were 5 penalties called on one play.
Holy cripe! Was that in the Bears game?
No, it wasn't in the Bears game. And somebody had the clip of the referee after all this making the calls.
Oh my God!
We have holding on the receiving team. We have personal foul. We have this, and on the kicking team, we have this. And as he's saying all these things, you got somebody near him shouting the calls because he can't remember all of them. He's doing all he can to make the calls without laughing.
Yeah.
And he finally gets to the end. He says, and after all that, they all offset.
Oh my gosh.
That was so preseason.
Well, you know what? I do have one. I don't know. I guess one negative thing to say about what I saw in the game on Saturday, and we can wait until after the break.
All right. Why don't we take a break, Jen? I'll listen to old time radio while we're.
You're listening to Armchair Experts. From the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, August the 23rd with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now back to Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro.
All right, I'm listening in the back. I switched headsets. I'm listening in the background to see.
See, I'm not getting anything at all like that. Are you hearing anything?
Not as much on here.
Okay.
Not as much.
Now I wonder why. Well, it doesn't matter.
Where were we?
I was going to say
yeah.
The one area where I was disappointed, or the one player I was disappointed in, Kevin White has had, of course, the injury issues, and you can't fault anybody for that, I don't think. But the one time that I remember he was targeted, my thought was he ran, looked like he ran it. Actually, I don't know about the route he ran, but I can't explain it. It was like he should have continued his route. So I guess it was the route. And the ball was overthrown. And I'm like, what is he doing? And I think the announcers, Miller and Rosen, even commented on it. And I was very disappointed. I mean, it was one play, but I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe what the writers have been talking about, his route running, is actually a problem.
It might be.
I tell you what, the two best wide receivers, from what I've seen, is Meredith and the guy that the undrafted free agent Gentry. That guy is. Yeah, he's going to make the team.
I think so too. And I look, and you tell me what you think. Who's going to be the backup running back? Is it going to be Kadeem Carey, or is it going to be Tariq Cohen?
Oh, Cohen, without a doubt. But I think they're going to. I'm thinking they're probably going to keep three, and Kadeem Carey's supposed to be really outstanding special teams guy.
Okay.
So between the fact that he ran pretty well on Saturday, and the fact that Langford is hurt, so that doesn't really help his case. I'm afraid that it might be Langford as the odd man out.
I think it might be because of the injuries.
Yeah.
And my Spartan wife,
she doesn't like that.
She's very disappointed if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're actually, that's sort of a nice situation because I think they're all good running backs.
Oh yeah. We were watching most of the game Saturday night, and Dana was paying attention when Cohen was running the ball. And
how can you not? Right now,
she says, "Oh my God, he's fun to watch."
Yeah, I mean he is. He definitely is that.
Such a little guy.
You know what?
And great speed and man.
You know what it is too. His eyesight is because when he sees the opening,
he goes
accelerates.
He accelerates and hits it.
He gets there. I was going to say though, Jim, and I don't like myself because I don't want to be a meatball and start playing. John, I'm fine. I'm good. I don't want to start playing.
I love the service in this place, don't you?
Yeah, it's excellent. I don't want to start playing armchair GM or armchair coach, but I'm thinking to myself, based on the wide receiver set that we have and the tight end group that we have, wouldn't it be sort of neat to see the Bears maybe play? You know how the Patriots really rely on Gronkowski, and when they had Hernandez, who was an outstanding talent, they would send those guys downfield because they could beat the people who were covering them long.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, geez, you know what? With Shaheen and Miller and Sims is your blocking guy, but even say Daniel Brown, I like to see them keep Broniker maybe around on the practice squad if that's possible. I don't know all the. I'm thinking maybe keep one more tight end. Maybe 4 tight ends and 1 less wide receiver. for your best overall mix of receivers.
You'd have a good mix.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
So, and again, I don't want to play meatball armchair, strategist or coach, but that was a thought that was in my mind.
Yes, too many guys have played fantasy football and they think they know everything now.
Yeah.
And I got to draft this to have that.
But I guess maybe part of it is, I haven't seen that much out of the wide receivers so far. What I've seen of Gentry, I like. Meredith always catches the ball, and what's more important than the ability to catch the ball? White, what I saw, I didn't like as much, and the other guys I have barely seen at all. So Kendall Wright was in the game.
Kendall Wright was in the game. Cruz was in the game.
Cruz, and I don't even know if he caught a pass or if they even threw a pass to him.
He was targeted once that I can think of.
Okay.
And he may have caught one.
Okay.
I should have brought my.
That's all right.
I should have brought my. I should have brought my tablet so I could actually see the screen.
Let's get back to your initial point, though, Jim.
What
did you see in the secondary that you liked?
Going after the ball.
Okay.
Going after the ball. I mean, there was that one play where the tackle was made, and I thought I saw the old Peanut Tillman ball punch.
Okay.
To get it out of there.
Okay.
And he grabbed the ball. Whoever got the ball, I think it was Cravion LeBlanc, wound up with the ball and ran it in, but the play was called back.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Because it was called back, and I told Dana.
Down by contact.
Yeah,
yes.
I told Dana, she's, they're not going to get a touchdown. I said, yeah, but I like the fact that they were that aggressive.
You're right.
That they were that aggressive to get it.
Yeah.
And at least he had enough sense to pick up grab the ball and take off just to see what would happen.
Sure.
There was a great field presence to do something like that.
Okay.
And there were a couple other plays along the way where I saw that same kind of aggression going for the ball on there, and I kept thinking, Peanut would be watching this, he'd be so proud.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Maybe he was
He
watching.
probably was watching it, but I mean, that's the kind of play that I saw, and I thought, this is good.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what. It's interesting. You just mentioned fantasy guys, people who look at these things a lot more closely than I do. So I respect that. But they'll say, talent-wise, the Bears, don't stack up. I look out and see what they've got, and I know it's exhibition games, and they're not always playing against the top-line players from the other team either. But I'm just talking about athletic ability. I see a lot more talent on this team than I've seen in a while. When you think about they played when the first team defense was in, they had Jarrell Freeman and Christian Jones as the inside linebackers because Kwiatkowski's got a concussion, and Trevathan's not back yet.
Yeah.
And I was looking for is it Alex Scarce? Who's a little undersized, but a good player.
Yeah. I don't recall seeing him.
No, he didn't make the trip. He didn't make the trip. He was injured. They didn't give a reason, but he was. But what I just see some good football players out there, and some guys who are not going to make the team who are good football players. So they've really improved their depth. In my opinion, anyway.
They have. And as I said, I find myself still strangely optimistic about this team. And I'm still defining strangely optimistic as anywhere from 6-10 to 9-7.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think
and in this league, the way things happen at times, 9-7 could make you a playoff team.
Sure, I think you're going to see. I think you'll see a very interesting team. What really jazzes me though is what the Bears, just like this draft, they went totally outside the box, and it looks like they scored winners on all of the guys they went out of the box with. Trubisky, Shaheen, Cohen, those guys are all going to be really good football players. I mean, barring injury or something.
I think the only criticism, Jackson
screwed up on that punt.
Screwed up on that punt.
Yeah. But there's another guy. I think that's going to be a huge improvement in the secondary.
Yeah.
So I like what Ryan Pace has done, and even with the 3-win season, when you start to think about we started off the year with Jay Cutler, and then we had Barkley and Hoyer. The Bears have shown a little bit, in my opinion, of what the Cubs brass shown as far as identifying talent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even when the Cubs were struggling through those rebuilding years, they would get guys. Okay, they weren't great players, but they were sort of they were interesting enough that you had to watch them. Sort of like what we've been saying about the Sox with their rebuild.
Yeah.
Not are they good? No, but are they interesting? Yeah, they sort of are. So
yeah. And actually, it was kind of funny. I had a comment. I saw something come up on my Facebook page. A comment that I made 6 years ago today. I said, show of hands out there, how many people figure Tom Rickards is going to screw up hiring the new GM?
Oh, okay. And what was the show of hands?
The comments that were made after that, which didn't show up when I tried to share this, and I commented today that I said reading the comments from 6 years ago shows we ain't experts.
We ain't experts. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump off the Bears, though. I was using the Cubs and Sox as a comparison.
It's a great comparison, and the Sox are going to go through the growing pains. Now I know Giolito is pitching tonight.
Mm-hmm.
They brought him up, and he's pitching tonight. Carson Fulmer pitched last night, and he stunk out the place.
Yeah.
And he's back, and he was sent back. Well,
he was 26th man.
He was the 26th man because of the doubleheader.
Yeah.
So he got sent back.
Isn't that interesting rule? Huh?
Yeah. You get a doubleheader, you get to add one.
Add one guy.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was actually a traditional doubleheader too.
First
game started. Second game started 30 minutes after the first game.
No. That's
it was the eclipse day that they.
Is that why they did it that
way?
They
set it up. They started it at 4:00.
Okay.
Did you? Speaking of the eclipse, we'll get off on that for a second. Did you see any?
No.
No.
It's, and it to me. I mean, I could see out the window, but it was
cloudy.
It was like a cloudy day.
It really was. It really was a cloudy day. We went to. The library in Woodridge that was having sort of an eclipse viewing party, and they had the TV screens set up in the lobby, and they had NASA TV, so you got to see some of that. And the NASA broadcast, because everybody because it was coming from the website. A lot of people were on that website.
I'm sitting in the cafe with Matthews, right?
Okay, I knew there would be a Matthews story coming.
And he says he asked me, "Are you going to watch the eclipse?" And I said, "I doubt it." So he's not really happy with my answer there. So now he's starting. He's starting to be concerned for everybody's health. How many people are going to be blinded by this, and and he says how many people do you think are going to look up and I go, 0. He wasn't happy with that answer. So now he had to find another tack, and he says, well, you have animals at home. He goes, what are you going to do with them during the eclipse? I go,
keep them inside.
Nothing.
Keep them inside.
And he looks at me and goes, well, they can be affected. I go, Jim, when is the last time you saw a dog look at the sun? Okay? They got their noses on the ground. They're sniffing, they're more interested in a pile of poop than the sun, for God's sakes. So that ended that conversation.
You didn't make a big hit.
No,
you didn't make a big hit. By the way, I had to laugh. Our friend Stephanie from Fanny's is nursing an injury. She fell.
Oh, okay.
And her and Troy were up at Irish Fest.
Oh, in Milwaukee?
Milwaukee, but she fell prior to getting everything out, and she's moaning about what she refers to as my broken butt.
Ooh, that sounds serious.
That sounds serious. In fact, one of her friends said, ooh, Fanny broke her fanny.
Jeez.
And she's posting about about that stuff, and I said, "Aren't you glad at this time you're not over at the other place and you got Massaro, Matthews, and me
Yeah.
making
really.
comments about?"
Yeah. That's right. We better not go down this road.
Yeah, no.
We better get off of this highway real quick.
We'll be
Let's
microaggressioning.
find the exit ramp right now.
Hey, talking about fantasy football and all that, I started to read this article from this SI, and what they did here with this, the idea is, what if you could choose a dream team that spanned every era of the NFL history, from Allworth to Zimmerman? 12 prominent football minds let their imaginations run wild. Just to see. And they picked 25 players. And it's interesting to see how... and they picked a coach, too. Interesting to see how...
Is this the way fantasy football is actually played, or is this something different?
No, this is something. This is something...
This is just a team they picked?
The team they picked, and it gave the writer a chance to write stories like Lombardi.
Now, were these players from all eras?
All eras.
Oh, that would be interesting.
All
and how
eras.
many teams? 12 teams?
There were 12 teams.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. Well, who
know,
were the coaches?
All right, the
coach
coach on one team, we've got John Madden,
Okay.
Curly Lambeau,
Okay.
Paul Brown,
Okay.
Don Coryell, Bill Belichick, Tom Landry, Joe Gibbs, Don Shula, Chuck Knoll. Bill Polian couldn't decide, so he took Marv Levy and Tony Dungy,
Okay.
Bill Walsh, and Vince Lombardi.
Oh, so that's okay.
And it's interesting how some people built their teams here. Joel Bussard, who is a former NFL senior VP, his first pick was Lawrence Taylor. Ron Wolf took Joe Green.
Joe Green. Okay.
Mean Joe Green.
Okay. You know what? When you said Joe Green, I was thinking of the first thing that popped in my head was that little running back that the Redskins used to have, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
It-
But
Maybe.
okay.
I'll digress. It
Joe
made-
Cribbs or something.
Joe
Was it
Cribbs.
Joe
Yeah, I
Cribbs?
think so. It made me
Yeah, I
think.
was like, what? Okay.
It made me think of. I saw Victor Borga one time, and he used to have this woman come out and be a singer, and she said, and it was just the usual shtick with him, and he has the mic, and he asks her, he says, "And what are you going to sing?" She goes, "I am going to sing the Caranomi from Rigoletto by Giuseppe Verdi." And he went, "Oh, God, not that piece of garbage." And he's moaning about it, and he goes back and sits down, and he goes, "All right, she's got to sing it. All right, so here's the Cockamamie from Rigor Mortis by..." And he goes, here's the Cockamamie from Rigor Mortis by Joe Green." Rick Goslin took Johnny Unitas.
Okay.
Dan Fouts, he also took Don Coryell as his coach.
Okay. Well,
He
it
took-
was his coach.
He took Ray Guy.
That's a good pick, though. I like
It's an-
that.
John
That's a weapon.
John Turney, football historian, took Anthony Munoz.
Okay.
Gil Brandt took Jim Brown.
Okay. Yeah, those are.
Bob McGinn took Reggie White.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Harrigan, who was a VP in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, took Don Hudson.
Don Hudson. Okay.
Great receiver from
Did
the
he
30s
also
and 40s.
pick Curly Lambeau as the coach?
No, he took Don Shula.
Okay.
Curly Lambeau was taken by Ron Wolf.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Peter King took Tom Brady.
Okay.
Bill Polian took Otto Graham.
Great.
John Wooten, Joe Montana,
Yeah.
and Ernie Accorsi took John Elway.
I think they're all very well thought out, great picks.
It was interesting, the author, and I didn't read the whole article to see how this all said, the only one that he thought would, Dan Fouts was very Charger
Yeah. that's
Charger-centric.
Okay. That's okay.
Yeah. But the comment about taking, he says, of course, it may work because he took Don Coryell, because Don Coryell was out there with his football mind.
Yeah,
You
for
know.
sure.
His quarterback that he drafted was Terry Bradshaw. He took him on the 5th round.
Okay, and who was his first round pick?
Ray Guy.
Ray Guy. Okay, I like that pick though. I mean, that was like, remember Jim, and I don't know how long he's been in the league now, when the Raiders took Janikowski,
Yeah.
and I
He's
remember
been around a long time.
Mike North at the time was still on the radio, and he was one of the few times I agreed with Mike North. He was pumping for the Bears to make that exact same pick, and if I remember, it was at a time the Bears right at the end of that season had brought that kid who had a lot of success with the Cowboys, and then really hit some rough times. He ended up being the Bears' place kicker for the last part of the season. I don't know if the Bears had let go of their kicker or injury was in, and they were having a big time problems with the kicking game as far as place kicker. And I thought, you know what, North is right on the money. And the Raiders did not go wrong, because Janikowski, if I think, is still around.
Still around.
So,
Still around. Yeah, he's still around.
Yeah,
And I think he's sober.
yeah. And Ray Guy, I mean, a super weapon
Ray
for
Guy,
your team.
Ray
I mean,
Guy's in the Hall of Fame.
yeah. So I have no issues with that pick at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think all 12 picks are great. Excellent.
If anybody's interested in this, I'm sure it's still out on their website. The Sports Illustrated has the MMQB, Monday Morning Quarterback, feature in here. And if you're more interested in that, you can take a look at themmqb.com.
Okay.
But it was kind of interesting just looking at this and looking at some of the names, and where some players went. I just happened to glance here. John Turney in the 15th round took Devin Hester.
Well, I mean, there's it's interesting. The guys all of the people that you named, like for instance, Otto Graham was not around in an era where they threw the ball the way they throw it today.
Right.
But Otto Graham, just a superior, if you would say, game manager. But I mean, when I say that, Otto Graham could throw the ball.
Yeah.
He was a superstar quarterback, but he's a guy who knew how to manage the football game.
He could do that, and it would be interesting if you could go back and put these players together, because Bill Polian, besides taking Otto Graham, took on offense Barry Sanders, Earl Campbell, Mike Ditka. Let's see, who else is a receiver? What else? Chris Carter, Tim Brown, and Bobby Mitchell.
Oh, those are all excellent people.
Yeah.
I mean, really good players.
Yeah.
So
Tingelhoff was his center.
another good, yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the guy who put that
Bill
team
Bill
together?
Polian.
Bill Polian.
So
Well, I got a lot of respect for Bill Polian.
Yeah.
Very intelligent
it was
football
just,
guy.
It was just a interesting article when we start to when you start to play.
Now, who did be curious, because they were both general managers. Who did Ron Wolf? Who did he take? I want to see what he did.
Let me go back and find him here. Ron Wolf. Well, he went defensive heavy right up front here.
Okay. Did he take
okay.
Reggie White?
He took with his
Or was
first
he Don Hudson?
with his first 5 picks. He took Joe Green, Gino Marchetti,
Oh.
Bob Lilly,
Wow.
Deion Sanders, and Ted Hendricks.
Well, that would be a pretty tough defense.
That's
You
a tough
yeah.
defense. Jim Parker at tackle, cornerback Mel Blount. Then he took Mike Munchak. Sammy Baugh was his punter,
Oh,
and his
okay.
quarterback was Brett Favre.
Wow, that's interesting. But that's a
And that was
yeah.
a 10th round pick.
Okay.
Eric Dickerson at one running back, Dave Casper at the tight end, Mel Hine was his center, Ron Yeri was a tackle,
Mm-hmm.
Max Speedy was a
Receiver.
His place kicker, Paul Hornung.
Interesting. Boy.
Cliff Branch was his wide receiver. His fullback, Bronco Nagurski.
Interesting picks.
Isn't it?
Very interesting.
Tommy Nobis at linebacker, Stan Jones at guard. He made a trade for a linebacker and got Andre Tippett. I don't know who he traded with. I'd have to go look at the article. Bobby Dillon at safety. Defensive end, Tombstone Jackson. I'm blank on that one.
I believe that was Denver Broncos.
Was it
Richard Jackson?
Richard Jack. Okay.
Yeah.
Johnny Robinson at safety, and then Tony Dorsett.
I'll tell you,
That's an interesting combination of players.
I just love the thinking, and I'm sure that the other guys did. Their picks were just as interesting. Where did you say I could find this?
You could go to the mmqb.com.
Yeah, that's well worth looking at in my eyes. I'm glad you brought that. Jim.
See if you can find that. Joel Busser took Ed Sprinkle.
Ed Sprinkle.
There's a name that any Bear fan will,
for sure.
Make you take your hat off and hold it over your heart.
For sure. And you know what I've read about Ed Sprinkle? Everybody will say, well, dirty player. But I've heard people say, the guys, and these are the opponents, that said, no, not dirty, but just tough, rough and tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, you better hang on to your helmet when the Sprinkle's in the area because, get your chin strap tightened up real good because it may come flying off if Sprinkle's flying around out there.
Yeah, I mean, glancing at some of these other picks, a couple of them, I didn't go through to see who are they taking of active players, how many active players were taken, but I look at Bob McGinn on the 9th pick, he took Rob Gronkowski. On the 12th pick, Julio Jones. Luke Kuechly at 15.
Luke Kuechly.
The linebacker. Am I pronouncing his name right? I always.
Yeah.
Carolina.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, okay. I was trying to place him with the team. I knew he was a recent player, but okay.
Yeah, but,
Well, see, that brings back, we were talking before about, I think a little bit about different eras, or I don't know if that popped into the conversation this time or I was thinking about it. You look at guys like Luke Kuechly and his counterpart on the Carolina defense, Thomas Davis. Those guys are great football players in any era. I'm sure Bronco Nagurski would be a great football player no matter what era he was in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I think, the common factor with the guys that some of the old names that you mentioned, like Gino Marchetti and Bob Lilly, I think you mentioned. Those guys are just great football players.
I'm looking at the picks that Ernie Accorsi made. He took John Elway, Lenny Moore, Ray Lewis, Marion Motley, and defensive end Len Ford with his first 5 picks.
Oh, those are all excellent football players.
Willie Rofe, John Mackey, Buck Buchanan, Michael Strahan, Jimmy Johnson at cornerback, Otis Taylor, George Webster.
Yeah.
His punter, also playing safety, Yale Larry.
Yeah, there you go.
Al Wistert, Bulldog Turner was his center.
Hey.
Maxie Bond at one linebacker.
Maxie Bond, excellent player.
Art Donovan, Russ Grimm, Dick LeBeau, Lou Creekmere, John Stallworth, Gary Anderson was his kicker, Rodney Harrison, and the last 2 picks, Willie Gallimore and Steve Van Buren.
See, when you name those names, and I think one of the things that people who do things similar to what we do, they're media people of some type. I'm not saying every one of them, but a lot of them don't get. You mentioned there was a name, Willie Rofe. I know he was with New Orleans, but some of the guys, Maxie Bond, that's who I was thinking of. Maxie Bond probably might have made All-Pro a few years when he played. I think he was with the Eagles and the Rams mainly. But what a lot of times people in our position don't realize is maybe talent-wise, Maxie Bond doesn't maybe line up with a Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor, outstanding, obviously outstanding player and a difference maker at his position. But what does a guy bring to the table as far as the intangibles? So that's what a lot of times isn't understood by the people who do things similar to what we do. And that's why these things are so interesting.
They are. And I've been playing around lately because we've long talked about our baseball Hall of the Very Good.
Right.
And I've been going through things on baseballreference.com and starting to look at guys that were selected for the Hall of Fame, guys that are in the Hall of Fame and make you go, what? But also trying to come up with those rare ones. And, you know, you don't see too many mistakes in the Hall.
No, I think
Too many mistakes in the Hall of
no,
Fame.
I think everybody who's in is should be there.
Yeah.
No question.
And, you know, there's some misses.
Well, yeah,
There's
there
some
is.
misses.
There is.
And the ones, and I find it interesting that the ones that you look at, the ones that you look at and go, why is he in the Hall of Fame? Yeah, well, if you go back and you look, you see he was a Veterans Committee selection.
Sure.
So that comes to the politics. But I kind of leading into this point where there were so many discussions, and this will be something for maybe we think about for another time when we get together. So many times, especially with basketball, is LeBron James better than Michael Jordan? You know, and I finally told one guy, I said, LeBron, you know, is he the greatest of all times? I said, he's the greatest of his era.
Yeah, probably so.
I said, can you come up with the greatest of all time in basketball? And I'm thinking more about that, and I'm thinking that might be difficult because the nature of the game has changed so much.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas you look at baseball is baseball. Yeah, you're
True.
getting some changes now where everybody's trying to, you know, exit velocity and all that because they realize, well, if you hit the ball higher and harder, you're going to hit a home run.
True.
You know, that might, but again, the basics are still the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And football, you made the comment that some of these guys would be great players no matter when they played.
Yeah.
Just because of their, just, you know, maybe they might, you may look at him now and say, well, he was kind of small. He'd be kind of small now.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's but we're talking about the ability to play the game.
The ability to play the game is the key.
I mean, Len Ford, I'm sure, was not a super big guy, and I know for sure Ed Sprinkle wasn't.
Ed Sprinkle was.
But some of the guys, you know, you get into that discussion, and football and basketball probably would be the main ones for size. But I would look at it like this: a football player, say you're Fuzzy Thurston, you know, 230-pound guard.
Not even 6 foot tall.
Yeah, he wouldn't be 230 pounds in today's game. Because nutritionally, weight training, you're probably talking about a guy who would probably be 270 instead of 230. So he wouldn't play the game at 230. He'd play it at a heavier weight because of what's involved in today's game.
You remember the story Jerry Kramer told about Fuzzy Thurston when they were playing the Colts and Big Daddy Gene Lipscomb was complaining the whole time?
No. I don't
Yeah,
know.
he was complaining the whole time through the whole game, yelling. Referee, he said, you watch Fuzzy. You watch Thurston. He been holding Big Daddy all day. He been holding Big Daddy all day. And he says, Fuzzy's sitting here and he's getting madder and madder. Getting madder and madder after another play. You know, ref, he been holding Big Daddy. You better start throwing that flag on him. He said, Fuzzy just marched up to Big Daddy, and Big Daddy was what, 6'10"?
Yeah.
He came up to about his chest. He looked up at him and went, Big Daddy, shut your mouth. End of discussion.
End of discussion. Well, you know, Fuzzy had a cup of coffee with the Bears.
Yeah.
And I actually, Jim, I looked at that and I said, why did the Bears, how could the Bears let a guy like Fuzzy Thurston go? But I looked at their offensive linemen at the time and I go, okay, it made sense. They were pretty well set in their offensive line positions because I think he was with them just prior to the time that they were ready to be champions in '63. I mean, maybe a little bit before that, but
I think it might have been before.
They were building up to that. So
yeah. It's always interesting, and I've noticed this too, looking at the baseballreference.com and looking at some of these guys down near the end that kept playing, and you kind of look at them and going, the productivity down near the end wasn't anything. Why are they there?
Well, you know what though, Jim? I've always said that there should be more guys in the Hall of Fame than less. The problem, I think, and it's maybe baseball. That's football so much, but baseball's big problem is this: say you take guys like, say, Enos Slaughter, Bill
Right.
Mazurowski, Ray Schalk.
Yeah. Those are three names I've thought about here, looking at them. Ray Schalk, especially. Why
Ray
is he?
Schalk's offensive numbers are not great. But see, I never saw Ray Schalk. Enos Slaughter was maybe around right at the,
Right,
the
we saw
time
him.
when
He was getting.
he was
it
almost, he was in his 40s.
Yeah, he was probably when we started going to games in the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
He was down near the end.
Just about done. And Maz we saw. But I mean, there's two things. Like you said, the Veterans Committee put some of these guys in, so they know, say, the impact they had on a team as a person, the way they played the game. So there's that part of it, which is important. Then you look at the stats part. When you say Enos, I just looked at Enos Slaughter's stats like a week or two ago. Finished with a 300 career average, okay, had over 100 home runs. The big thing is he played with a lot of winning teams. I
Right.
mean, the Cardinals, the Yankees,
Right.
the Braves. And he was important because even as he got to the latter part of his career, the contending teams wanted him. So you had him with the Yankees twice, I think, the Braves once, when they were good in Milwaukee. So there's that. But when you look at his stats, like I said, a 300 on the nose, 300 career hitter, then you start to look at other guys' stats that aren't in the Hall, and you go, shit. I mean, excuse me. Oh my God.
Oh,
Sorry.
John, he
You're
said,
like-
John,
You're like,
John, he said a bad word.
you're like,
Get the soap.
you know what? There's a lot of guys whose stats are right there.
Yeah.
I mean, so and we're also very good players, or known as being very good players.
What's interesting too, as I look at some of these things on BaseballReference.com, as I've been starting to do some of it, you're trying to go alphabetic, and you get boring because you see a bunch of guys who've had basically one game back in 1918, but they're listed there, and you got to take a look. I'm trying to take a look, but some of them you come across and I'm like you, all of a sudden I have a name pop into my head, and I go look up his stats. And what I've been trying to do is come up with an index number to say who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I've used something off Baseball Reference where they have what they call their black ink index, which means how many times did he lead the league. The gray ink index, how many times were they in the top 10 of whatever stats there are. Their Hall of Fame monitor, which is certain things, and I can't remember it all. If I had it here, I didn't know we would get into this today. And their Hall of Fame standards. And there's a number that says the average Hall of Famer has been in, black ink so many times, gray ink so many times. His Hall of Fame monitor should be at least this, which is kind of representing the average Hall of Famer. And their Hall of Fame standards happen to total up to 362. So that's been kind of my standard looking at this. One person right on the number and deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Oh, well, Shoeless Joe is...
that man, it's a crime that man is not in the Hall of Fame.
well, there's... Put it this way. Shoeless Joe Jackson, okay, Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, who
Barry
I can't
Bonds,
stand.
Barry Bonds,
I shouldn't
say
say I can't stand them, but he's...
Barry Bonds, I think, with the way things are looking, I think within the next 2 to 3 years is going to be in the Hall of Fame.
though you still have sport. I think Morrissey is one of them. He wrote just recently about how would you say it, steroid era deniers. They're starting to soften on the steroid era guys.
That's
You know
only
what? Somebody said Chipper Jones. I just read his book not that long ago. Not a big fan of Barry Bonds, but what he did say is he says okay, did steroids, no question, 700 and some home runs. Okay, you know what? You still got to hit the ball out of the park. The steroids maybe helped him get stronger, but what he's saying is you got to hit the ball first. And you got, so it's more than just the strength. I mean, Roger Clemens, 300 and how many victories? Was it 340 or
40,
something?
I think, yeah.
He's not in the Hall. You
No.
mean to tell me that
He's not. He's not in the Hall of Fame. you look at the numbers, and there's going to be two that probably will never be elected because of what they've done, because of the attitude, maybe more than anything else. And God knows we know the sports writers are paragons of virtue. The Baseball Writers Association, Sammy Sosa and Rafael Palmeiro.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't know when they'll get acknowledged,
You know,
if ever.
the worst thing that any of those guys ever did, though, Jim, as far as personally they should be concerned, they should have never ever appeared with Congress.
that
Just
killed
said,
them.
You know what? I'm not coming.
Yeah.
Whatever. And why was Congress involved in the first place? You know, because
Yeah,
they're a
that-
bunch of grandstanders themselves.
Because there were also the grandstanders. Well, we got into some other things I was going to save for another time, but by golly, that was 11 minutes of fun, wasn't it, John?
Yes.
All right, let's wrap it up. Wake up, John.
You know, that's the Shoeless Joe that you were just talking
Yeah.
about? I think he opened up a restaurant in Addison, in Illinois.
No.
No.
No?
That's
Because there's a
Joe
Shoeless...
Joe Jackson's been dead for about 65 years.
Oh, okay, because on Donna Sports, which will be on with me tomorrow,
Yeah.
there is somebody by the
Yeah.
name of Shoeless
Yeah.
Joe's that that advertised on this.
that's Joe Macatelli.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
Joe Macatelli.
hey,
yeah.
how you doing?
He used to own the bar right up the block here on Irving and Ottawa.
Oh,
is
he
that
did?
right?
Oh yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he owned that. That was Shoeless Joe's, and then he moved over to
Oh God, I don't
Mannheim
even,
and
gosh,
Higgins.
I don't even remember that being true.
and as far as I know, he's still at
Still there.
Mannheim and Higgins.
Still there. I haven't been in
So-
there in years.
Well, I know there's a Shoeless Joe's that advertised
No.
on Don Ficarelli, the Donna
No,
Sports.
Shoeless Joe Jackson actually lived in somewhere in the South, and I always remember the story of he had a liquor store, and Ty Cobb went in there and bought a pint of whiskey, and you know he's kind of acting like it's a normal customer transaction, back and forth. And finally, Cobbs looked at Joe and said, "Joe, don't you know me?" And Jackson looked at him and very sadly said, "Yes, I do, but I didn't think you wanted to know me."
Yeah, I heard that story. Yeah.
Because of everything that happened. So that was always a crime. But that'll be another thing for another time. All right, John, crank it up. We went overtime.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Thanks for everything, as always. Putting up with our nonsense. All right, that was fun. That was fun. That was an all-star edition, I'd
Definitely.
say. All right, we're gonna get together again whenever John lets us back down here again. September the 12th, we do this again. Okay. All right, that sounds fun. Until that time, we are Taillights.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, August the 23rd on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Seconda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, August the 22nd, the year 2017. Until next time, friends, please be safe, and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich.